Hello, welcome to the Voices and Stories podcast. On today's episode, we are joined by Peter Adwok Nyaba, who happens to be an author. He's not only a writer, he's also among the many South Sudanese students that joined the struggle to liberate South Sudan. He's here with us in the studio, and it's more than an honor to have him here. So we're going to carry on today's conversation. And make sure that you're part of this discussion from the beginning till the end, because it's going to be an extremely informative session. Peter, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's truly an honor to have you here.
And also happy to be in your broadcast, and wish also to greet those who are listening and following this.
Yes. All right. I already gave a brief intro to who you are. In your bio, it says that you are among the many students. So you are a student, and then you joined the struggle to the Bush War, which is popularly known as the Bush War, to fight and, of course, liberate South Sudan, the South Sudan that we have here today. Who would you say Peter Adwok Nyaba is?
Well, I joined two wars, actually. The first war, popularly known as the Anyanya War, we joined it in 1965, and around Malakal. That time the schools were closed. It was after the downfall of the first military regime in the Sudan. And the Anyanya War was on. And when the schools were closed in the south, there was no other way to, except to join the struggle, and moved from that area which we call Malakal, because it was the Shuluk camp, and we traveled all the way to Congo, to the before the Democratic Republic of Congo. It used to be called Belgian Congo, before it was turned into Zaire. And the idea was for us to go and get education in East Africa. When we reached Aba, we found that it was not possible. Many of our colleagues from Rumbek Secondary School and also from the intermediate schools were in the refugee camps there, and the life was really difficult. And we thought it's better to go back. So went to the camp, to the games park,
Yeah.
Where we did some hunting and so on to raise money to buy more weapons. And then when we found that everybody had we started walking back, and it was a journey of about 40 days, walking all the way from, near Malakal, you come all the way through Ayot, through Bor, through Kongor, Bor, Jele, the Paliao, the home of Deng, and then we crossed to the Aliab area, we passed through the Mandari area, through the Nyangra area, Pujulu area, then to the Kakwa area, and went back the same way. This was the first war. And of course, in 1966, the commander of the camp said, no, you better go back to the school. The schools were now opened in Khartoum, northern Sudan. So, but I personally, I didn't want to go for the right. So I decided to remain in the Anyanya, in the camp, until I became sick. I got attacked by this disease called scabies. And it was a very painful disease. The scabies, it affects all your body, and it's a very uncomfortable kind of disease. So I came up to Bor, and then from Bor I went back. It was a bit difficult to continue. So they said, okay, you can go to the town and maybe proceed to Khartoum. So after some months in the village where I was now getting cured, I decided to go back to the school, 1966.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was it like going back to school after?
Well, at that time, I would say, in the north, it was a bit free. You would not be identified as a rebel. You know, in the south here, in any educated person was identified as a rebel and profiled, and was a bit dangerous. So many of the educated South Sudanese was better for them to be in northern Sudan than in the south.
That was when Sudan was still one.
Sudan was still one, yeah, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
During
yes. Yeah, and then of course went back to missed classes, but went to and sat for the school certificate, and then went to the university. Yeah.
So education must have really been difficult during that time.
Yeah, for South Sudanese, of course, especially in the north, you didn't have anybody to really help and so on. But the good thing is that that education was free. So the government provided uniform, provided food, provided everything. So in that respect, it was good. And that's why people could concentrate and then at least pass the exams. This is our way.
You served as a minister for higher education in Sudan. But you
before that, of course, after went to the university, and this is where really one would say in the university one became more aware of what the situation, you could understand what this war was all about. And of course, we started political work, and the student movement, first in the Southern Front. That was the only Southern political party at that time. And then, of course, came SANO. And of course, in 1969, the government was overthrown again. We had the second military regime of Nimeri. But the war was still going on in the south. The war was still going on, and it was getting better organized. That's the time you see Joseph Lago now became the leader of the Anyanya. And as a military man, he was able to organize the Anyanya and put it on a better military footing than the politicians who were there before. So that was the timing. Of course, after finishing the university, I studied geology as a subject, as a scientist, and then went to Port Sudan to work. And in 1977, I decided to leave the Ministry of Mining and Industry and came to South to join the University of Juba. Okay. So this is briefly what up to that moment, and of course,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting when we look at your bio, because you did geology, you're a scientist, you're also in the army, you're fighting, you're balancing all this at that time, and these were really difficult times and difficult situations to be in.
Yeah, of course, but this after joining the university, went out, of course, got married, we went to Hungary to prepare for PhD, then came back, and that's when the war again started. And we did not, of course, for me, thought that was an opportunity now to achieve what the Anyanya did not achieve. So I joined the SPLM 3 years later. And this was, of course, after my discourse with the party, because I was a member of a political party which was proscribed that time. The Communist Party was proscribed. So after the fall of Nimeri, because we were in the trade union then, we thought that this was an opportunity now to join and help in the liberation process. Of course, the Communist Party was against the idea of armed struggle. The Communist Party wanted a political struggle. That is through trade union work and passive political struggle. And we thought in the South was the Ummah Party coming back into power. It was going to be a repeat of the 1965 situation in which many people were killed, government officials were killed, and so on. And the situation in the South was going to be more. So it was better for some of us to join the movement and help in developing the ideas, raise the awareness of people, and of course put it on an ideological footing.
Yes. You see. I mean, a lot of your writings, when we look at your writings, it's between your personal experience, also your political analysis. So we're interested in knowing how do you usually approach that when it comes to your writings?
No, I don't write about my personality. I've been, except in the
your experience in the struggle,
except in the autobiography. But all my writing, starting from the first book, which I wrote in 1997, The Politics of Liberation in South Sudan, it was about the liberation movement and the struggle of the people of South Sudan and the difficulties that people encountered and what led to the divisions within it. This is covered in that book. And of course, many South Sudanese, especially in the SPLA, thought that I was exposing the weaknesses of the movement. But exposing the weaknesses of the movement is to enable people to correct these weaknesses and strengthen the political movement. And then, of course, I approach these issues from an ideological point of view, not personal. There's nothing personal in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And, when you reflect back on the struggle, you already mentioned, of course, it's nothing personal that you write about. You approach it from an ideological point of view.
Yeah.
What are some of the responsibilities that you see for you as a writer, as an author, and maybe there are many other authors out there, also people that want to write about South Sudan experience? I'm sure there are many also from your comrades also, and from your times people are writing. What are some of the things that you think is very important when it comes to truth telling? Because a lot of people write, and the history of South Sudan is, of course, with a lot of the people that were in the struggle, a lot of people that are experiencing South Sudan now, and they're writing about it. What is important? Is truth-telling important, or how the methods of verifying the information?
Well, as I said, the first book tackled the politics of liberation. We had difficulties in the SPLM. And in 1991, the SPLM is split. Okay? It is split into two. The Nasser faction and the Taurid faction. And the split did not come from nowhere. It came from the problems within it, the way the SPLM was managed. Okay, because when we talk of contradictions arising, it's because of how we manage things. So the SPLM from the very beginning as problems, structural problems, problems of organization, problem of lack of political program, problems of that the SPLM was both military and as well as political, and the saying that you are both a military, a soldier, and a politician, which cannot happen. These all created problems which led to the split, which led to arrest of some people, which led to death of some people under detention and so on. These were problems within the SPLM. Now coming to writing about them. Writing, of course, writing for me is a hobby. It's not a profession. It's a hobby which I take up in order to be able to tell the truth about what happened. So if we are talking about what happened in the split in the SPLM, must be said in a truthful manner, such that others who are reading it know exactly what it is. We are talking about the political history of South Sudan. You were not there, but when you read about it, you will now know that this has happened, and it has happened because of this and that. So this is what I do in my writing. And part of it is also to stimulate discussion, to stimulate debate. You see, because when I say something, you may agree or you may not agree. So it stimulates discussion between us, so that we are able to arrive at the truth together. And this is, to me, what I would say, liberation. Because liberation is conscientization. You become aware, both of us become aware of the truth at the same time. We have no differences in this truth. We agree that it is exactly what it is. It is reflecting the real situation.
Yes.
The objective situation.
In your writings also, there is Up from the Village, and there is another one that is very interesting where you speak about whether South Sudan got independence and South Sudan was not ready.
Yeah, well, it's just, after the first book, of course, the agreement came, the CPA, and we came, the war ended. And we now, SPLM, came back to be part of the government. So what it should have done was now to turn its ideas into what it was struggling for.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is how I came to write the book, the second book, The State We Aspire to. Now we fought in order to get a state, to build a state, to get political power and build a state. What is this state supposed to do? Is to socially and economically develop the country. Build schools, build hospitals, build roads, build physical infrastructure, electricity, develop agriculture. These are the things the state is supposed to do, the government. That's why we took up arms. Because we didn't fight because we wanted, we like fighting. South Sudanese took up arms because of three conditions. One is poverty. Poverty because of economic marginalization by the government in the north, both by the government and the colonial administration. There has not been any social and economic development in South Sudan. So this poverty we are seeing is not because we don't have resources, it's because these resources, the natural resources, have not been developed to the benefit of the people. Okay? So we took up arms in order to be able to develop our country, in order to address the issue of poverty, the issue of ignorance, that people are still ignorant. only ascribe to themselves, to their own ethnicity, to their own personality, and so on. You see, and then to build a country. The other thing is to develop, to address the issue of cultural backwardness. We are backward because we have not developed our means of production. These resources we are having, like for instance, the livestock, for instance, the cattle we have not been developed. We keep them in a traditional way, okay? For marriage, which just for marriage, for fright and so on. But they are not contributing to the economy of to our economy. It's not producing milk, not producing beef, not ice, not. So what are these things for? Now, this is what we took up arms. The people took up arms from Anyanya 1 to SPLM, SPLA, in order to address these issues. And it is the failure to address these issues that have really caused the problems we are in today. That's why the war broke out again. Because poverty, because of ignorance, and ignorance, you see it in the way we divide ourselves along ethnic and regional lines, you see. This is part of ignorance of our people. You see, we only look ourselves as I look at myself as a Shuluk, you look yourself, Bari, this is a Dinka, and this is an aspect of backwardness. You see, not at this stage in 21st century, where this country is supposed to be more developed.
Yes.
The age of technology, we are still in this kind of...
I'm really interested in knowing why South Sudanese are really divided along ethnic lines. It's an aspect of backwardness, lack of education. All these things can contribute. But where did South Sudanese fail?
I'll explain a little to you. Mm-hmm. And this is clear in my autobiography. I started from the village as a Shuluk boy from the village. Okay? I went to Dollefield Elementary School. It's an American school, 1954. The people there were all Shuluk. So my environment is still a Shuluk village. It's just like Warajwak, for instance, where I came from. In 59, I went to Attar, still in the Shuluk area. But there were students from other parts of Upper Nile. Okay? We had Dinkabur, we had Nuer, we had Anyak. We didn't have Murle. Okay? But the Dinka, the Nuer, and Anyak were there. We didn't have Burun. No, we had from Uduk. We didn't have Maban. We didn't have Kola. These are the Koma. These are the people who are inhabitants of Upper Nile. Okay? So my environment now improved from the Shuluk to now Upper Nile environment.
Nile, yes, mixed.
Okay? And my thinking also changed. I'm not entirely a Shuluk. Now I become a person of Upper Nile. When I went to Rumbek in 63, I found the whole South now. So it's a different environment. Okay? Now I became a South Sudanese now. Okay? And because I met people from different tribes from Equatoria, different tribes from Barghazal, different tribes of Upper Nile. Okay? So my thinking began to change. I cannot think now as a Shuluk. I began to think as a South Sudanese. And this is what should happen to our people as we come together in social organization, in social production. We change from where we started up to become, we are now building a nation now, made up from all these people. The problem why we still still identify ourselves as tribes is because we have not had this opportunity of working together, of building the nation together. So there's a leadership problem there. Because it is the work of the leaders now to bring people together and unite them. But if the leaders are dividing people along ethnic lines, if instead of being a member of the political party like SPLM, we go and form community-based organizations, then we are not building a nation now. We are building our trust, we are dividing ourselves. So it becomes difficult. This is just like what we were before the British came. Because before the British came, we were living as different, what we call authentic groups, independent groups, tribal groups. Okay? The neighbors were competing, or they were, maybe working together through intermarriages and having peace among themselves. But otherwise, people were different, either fighting or doing this. Yeah. Okay. So it is a failure of the political leadership to bring people together and unite them. That's why we have people who still identify themselves as ethnic groups.
Can education,
like for instance, in the university, and University of Juba. When we were in the university, we didn't have tribal groupings or tribal associations. Never. You see, because I think that time the Junubin had a problem with the North. So there was one problem that united us all.
Everybody else, yes.
Now, when South became independent, now each group wants to identify themselves as. So in Juba University, for instance, the students are organized along ethnic, as tribes, as communities, not as
a nation. But that is really not a good indication, because our hope was that education would be able to change the mindset of people dividing themselves along ethnic lines. So if we have institutions like a very big university in the whole of South Sudan and people are having those groups within there, that's really discouraging.
So it's a reflection of the political situation in the country. So because the political situation, the SPLM, instead of uniting people, it divided itself along ethnic lines. You had communities, where elders, council of elders, Dinka, Young Council of Elders. In my research, the only people I found without the Council of Elders are the Zandi and the Shuluk and the Anyuak. And this is because these people have their own systems. The Zandi, there's no Council of Elders because there's one king.
You have a king.
The Zandi king. There's a Shuluk king. So you don't have this intermediate thing.
People overseeing the issues. Yeah. Now, can we talk about the economic development? Because earlier you touched on how people have livestock, they have cows, they have goats, but it's not producing, it's not becoming any source of production. Yeah. What are some of the hindrances that you see in South Sudan economic development?
Yeah, it comes from the fact that, as I said before, we took up arms. We took up arms against certain contradictions in the society, all right? Against poverty, against ignorance, against cultural backwardness, and so on. Which meant that the SPLM, when it took up arms, was to articulate these problems into a political program and how to solve it. So as we chase the enemy from or liberate the area, for instance, we begin now to implement the program, the political program. From a leftist point of view, this stage in which we are is the stage of national democratic revolution. A national democratic revolution in which now, after you have become independent, like South Sudan became independent, what is to be done? Is social and economic development. Okay? Which means you choose which trajectory would you take this development? Is it a capitalist, neo-colonial way of development? Which means you have to link yourself to the colonialism, imperialism, and build a capitalist economy, or you go along the non-capitalist, which is the national democratic revolution. You launched it, in which now you want to strengthen this independence by developing your own resources by yourself and free from interference from anybody. SPLM did not choose it. The SPLM chose the liberal free market economy. Okay? Which means you have to manufacture capitalists. Because we don't have capitalists here. Huh? You have to manufacture a class, the capitalist class, which will now can... So development will come as a trickle-down process. Huh? When these people, they become rich, they are able to now can begin to invest. And this can take 50, 100 or so years. So all this suffering is because of this kind of situation. It would have been different if the SPLM took on, because we started in 2005, we had a lot of money from the oil. This money could have been could have been used to build. First, the most important thing was the physical infrastructure. Okay? Build physical infrastructure, roads, because you have to connect the people, yes, to the markets. You have to build the power generating body. We had the Fuller Rapids and Biden Rapids, where they can supply electricity. Because once you have electricity, this is power. You can now, industries, small industries can begin to spring up and so on. Then the third thing is agriculture. In order to be able to produce food for the people and also to put value into this agricultural produce in order to industrialize. Because the end product is to industrialize. You become industrial like Europe, right? Where, you can manufacture things. But what did we do? We don't have even a manufacturing plant today. What do we manufacture? Yes. Even soap, even kabrit, what do you call it?
Matchsticks.
Even nails. We cannot produce nails. We cannot produce anything. And worse, we are importing food because we did not develop our agriculture. So our South Sudanese farm, its value dropped from what it was in 2011. It was $2, 2 pounds to $1. Now it is 5,800 to $1. You can see what
the difference is big. The difference is huge. Yeah.
So something went wrong somewhere. Wrong. The priorities in the development got changed. So the money went to some individuals, which they use for their own purpose. They took it out of the country, building mansions in Kampala, in Nairobi, and so on. So the development priorities change completely.
Yeah. Well, what can be done to fix this really? Is this situation fixable? Is it a fixable
Well, it
situation?
is South Sudanese who ask themselves, what is it? You see, when
You're
things...
a South Sudanese too.
Yeah, all of us, you know, we have to ask ourselves, why is this thing going like that? And how long can it go? And in the course of asking this question, answers will come out from the people, you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really interested also in knowing about your educational journey, because you served as a minister in Sudan.
Yes.
I'm not sure about the timeline, which year that was, but you served as a minister in Sudan. You also served as a minister in South Sudan.
Yes, I was, when we came back after the war, of course, I was a member of parliament representing Upper Nile in the Council of the States for the SPLM. And in 2008, they appointed me as a Minister of Higher Education in Khartoum. Higher education, of course, responsible for, the higher education institutions in the country. And the mandate, South Sudan, it was a sub-national entity. It did not have that mandate. The mandate was only exercised by the Ministry of Higher Education in Khartoum. And of course, the issue then was the policy which was being done. The policy was the NCP policy. The SPLM did not have an input there. And what we found there was the issue of massification of higher education. That is opening up higher education, and in every state there is a university, or there's a college and so on, opening up and giving people certificates. But this was at the expense of knowledge. You see, somebody was in university, graduated, was a Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Economics, but had no knowledge about what this thing in his head.
Yeah.
And because it must be reflected in what it is. And so it was difficult to change that, of course, because that the government, the SPLM was a minority party in the Khartoum. But when the South became independent, what we said was that we will not go with this massification of higher education. Okay, we wanted quality higher education in which, you produce people who would now be effective in social and economic development of the country. And of course, the idea was to have only 5, actually 3 universities. To me, one would have been sufficient. Juba University was there since 1977, and it could have been sufficient. But already, because of this massification of higher education, you had Upper Nile University, you had Bahr Ghazal University. And then there was the John Garang University, which was an institute. When Bashir came here, he made it a university, and Rumbek Secondary School made it a university. But these were universities which were opened in secondary schools, in buildings which were secondary school before. And like Juba University, for instance, was opened in what used to be girls' secondary school. It was the first girls' secondary school in Southern Sudan. It was opened in 1964 built in 1964 by a boot, to be the only secondary school for girls, because there was no secondary school for girls in South Sudan. Until after the agreement, we didn't have a secondary school for girls here. Okay, leave the university. University came in 1977. So this is how the system was. So when we came, the idea was to have quality education, to have universities which will now address these issues of social and economic development in the country. Not only disseminating knowledge and generating knowledge, but also to apply knowledge in order to be able to develop the country.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the program we met and for the night, which was the idea was to, in our strategic plan was to between 2012 and 2027 would build the university, 5 universities, and such that by that time the universities would be independent now. You see, free from the government, they can now do their own, academic program, financial independence. They can generate their own resources and so on through research, This was on the assumption that when South Sudan became independent, it would also develop. So industries would come up and so on. And of course, this did not happen. So the program which we built just collapsed with the lack of funding for the universities, because we wanted first to build world-class university campuses. So Juba University would not be here, it would be in Belinyang, and we had the plan for it. Modern plan for it, because to me, higher education was also a market. So instead of sending people to Britain or to America, if you have proper campuses with the staff, you see, then you don't have to send them out. They will be doing it. They are doing their research, and also you will get people coming to study here, and they will be paying money. So the university will be making its own money, and that's all. But unfortunately, the campuses as they are now, you cannot invite them. They're not inviting anybody at all, and not even the teachers. You see, because even they have no lecture, no class, no offices, no.
Yes.
Nothing.
A number of challenges that they're facing. Yes.
You see,
I want to shift the discussion to accessibility.
Sorry?
Accessibility.
Yes.
When it comes to accessing South Sudan libraries, books, and even you are an author, and when someone is trying to look for any of your books to read, there is that issue of accessibility in South Sudan generally. So as an author, how do you deal with that, and what would you really say about it when it comes to, because a lot of South Sudan now we're trying to build a library, or we're trying to make South Sudanese youth, or anybody really who's interested in reading and finding about South Sudan literature, finding South Sudanese authors and books. We're trying to build that connectivity through this podcast. So, like, the issue of accessibility, from your view, how can it be handled?
Well, the problem, of course, now comes to funding. Because if you have to buy books, you see, even those generated by the knowledge generated by the staff themselves cannot be available to the students because they need to be published. okay, and put in a format that they can be available to the students. This is not possible because basically, if you look at around in South Sudan, you don't have a printing press here. If you have to print it outside the country, it is very costly. So it comes back to funding again. That our own development, we have kind of killed it because the money, as I said before, went to certain individuals instead of, and with the corruption that occurred between 2005 and 2014, you see, the whole idea of developing, and developing including the higher education also, collapsed. So it's a problem because even as a writer, I have a book now which I want to print or to publish. I cannot publish it because it is becoming expensive. I cannot publish it on my own. We don't have publishing house here. We don't have anything. And then the other thing is that the students don't have the money to buy. Okay? Their parents are not getting their salaries. So it's a linked up issue. It's something, intertwined. You see. You need to change this by changing all the negative things that are happening. You see. That's the only way, in my opinion, that this thing can change.
The issue of access to books, access to libraries, people being able to
It is linked up, and even also, okay, you look at the university, look at the education from the primary school. If the government has lifted its hand away from funding education, it means that education will be only for a few people who can afford it. So many of the children on the street are not going to school. In 20 years, what is going to happen to this country? You will have a problem of human resource. You will not have educated people. You see, because many of them are not going to school now. Because the school system has been privatized. And the parents are not getting their salaries to be able to pay. So the child is prevented from attending the class. So it's a big issue.
Yes. Yeah. All right. It's really been amazing hearing from you, your thoughts and some of the things that you think can be used to change or challenge or fix the country. But finally, I really want to know what really gives you hope, because with the situation in South Sudan, sometimes some people have lost hope.
Sorry?
Hope.
Yes.
With the current situation that is happening, a lot of people have become very hopeless. They feel, things are not going according to the way that they want. So you as a South Sudanese, what gives you hope, and also what would you ask of young people out there that can make them hopeful?
Well, it is true. I mean, the situation is so terrible that even those in government are complaining. So really, it is a challenge to those people of South Sudan, both the leadership and also the people themselves. And we have started wrongly. In fact, anything started wrongly ends up wrongly or ends up badly, because this is a personal opinion. The liberation started wrongly. And wrongly because it was not really liberation. It was a power project. Somebody wanted power. And power alone by itself, without, because the power belongs to the people. It's the people who give you power. Power in itself, you got it now, and you think it is yours. What do you do with it? It means you have to include the people. It means you have to organize the people. It means that they have to contribute in one way or the other. You see? And because of that, because of the way things work, because we only trained ourselves to shooting and fighting, that's why after the war ended, we could not do anything again. So we have to be fed, like the NGOs used to feed us during the war. Because people did not allow people to cultivate themselves. Or they say the food will not come if people cultivate it. Imagine, look at this kind of thing. Because liberation itself is to free the energy, both intellectual and physical energy, to be able to do and change the situation for yourself. Yes. So when people have lost hope, it's because we have not seen wise leadership that understands the problems of development, understands the problems that the people are facing, and also desires to transform, and to resolve this problem. So this is the leadership we are lacking. We have to find that leadership.
All right. As we come to the end of today's episode of the Voices and Stories podcast, I would like to know, what is the one thing that you really want to put out there, or in other terms, what is your final message?
Well, as I said before, we are in the stage of national democratic revolution. Until that stage, as we have addressed the problems of that stage, which would end up in industrialized country that is industrialized, a knowledge-based society, a civilized society, we still have to face this. So what you see as fighting and all this going on is to try to answer this one. But until people come and because what we have seen is that fighting in itself is not. It produces an elitist class that is completely not aligned, whose interests, whose social, economic, and political interests are not aligned with the interests of the people. They are building their own castles, staying in the hotels, in first-class hotels, and so on. So you need a leadership that emerges from the people, that understands the problems of the people, that can now help the people to transform their reality.
Yes. This was supposed to be the final question, but what you just said brought me back to election. Something that we're all looking forward to. Elections. That's the conversation right now in South Sudan. Do you think elections can change this situation, or how do you look at elections?
The elections is about power. So changing power from one party to the other. In this situation of war, where we have not even addressed the issue of peace, and how do you do elections? It's creating more. You are going to have problems more, because if you look at analyze this situation, it's about power. People are fighting over power. It's a struggle for power and control of the state and its resources. This is the reality we are in. You cannot resolve this. Look at the agreement, the revitalized agreement. It has not been, most of its provisions have not been implemented, because this is what would have ended up in the elections. You see, if you look at the revitalized agreement, it talks about in a transition, this transitional period will end in a peaceful and a democratic elections. And then you have a peaceful transfer of power. Now, while people are fighting in Jungule, in Western Equatoria, in Eastern Equatoria, can you do elections? What kind of elections? In Juba here alone? I don't think so. You cannot do it in Juba while the rest of the country is, no. So elections is not a solution to it. The solution to me is that people, the so-called political leaders, should sit down and look at the problems of the country. Look at the problems people are facing. The problems of hunger, that there are people who sleep without, on empty stomach. There are children who are not going to school. There are people dying because they cannot get the medicines they need. These are the real problems. And the leaders should look at this if they really love this country and think that this is they are there for the people. They should be able to solve this and forget about this thing of power.
When we look at the revitalized peace agreement, the agreement was really whole and it had a lot of provisions. It included almost everybody. And if we had gone per the agreement, I think by now South Sudan would have we would have achieved all the goals that we had. But what is the issue that the provisions in the agreement is not being implemented? What is the hindrance for the implementation?
It is again the issue of power. If somebody wants to hold the power alone and to be there, doesn't need any change, he wants to die in power, then he will not implement the agreement. Because there is fear of accountability. I don't want to be accountable for the wrong things which happen, whether during the war or during the peacetime. So why would I give power? Why would I make elections? The elections should return me. And this is the problem, really. The leaders of the region are not seeing this. They still talk of, we'll make another, forum shopping for another to Mahindi, going to South Africa.
Yes.
It's not solving the problem. They are not, because they themselves have problems in their own countries. So they cannot nail, pin hit the nail on the head. You see?
Yes.
So this is where the problem is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Adwok Nyaba. It's really amazing having you here. This has been an extremely meaningful conversation, impactful and highly informative. Our hope is that the people who are listening to us would have benefited so much and would have taken so much. I trust that they have benefited just like we did here today. It's extremely important that we continue to have these conversations. And I want to say that we don't take your time for granted. We know you're very busy. So coming here on the Voices and Stories really means a lot to us and for you to share all the knowledge and information you have.
Well, thanks. I think the pleasure is mine to be able to talk to also an audience I'm not seeing, and I'm happy that we have, I hope I've managed to answer some of the concerns and look forward in future to answer more questions and so on. Our situation really needs critical thinking. I think this is my interest to see people are able to think critically about the situation in which they are, because basically it is us who will change this situation. And thank you very much for hosting me.
Thank you so much. It's an extreme honor.
Bye.